How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. Today I'm going to compare 3 recent robotic vacuums, the eufy X10 Pro Omni, Roborock Q Revo S, and a Roborock S8 Pro. This video is sponsored by eufy, but I'm going to try to keep it as unbiased as possible by taking out my opinions and just showing you the results instead. I asked the brand to let me compare against the Roborocks because a lot of people have said that their vacuums are pretty darn good. Robotic vacuum cleaners have so much complexity in it. They have water tanks, pumps to pump the water, they have motors for the vacuum cleaner, they have cameras for the sensors. The list just goes on, and every single year they just keep on improving the features. First, of course, the price. MSRP, they go for $800, $800, and $1,600. So the last one is quite a bit more expensive, almost twice as much MSRP. The suction power is 8,000 pascals, 7,000 pascals, and 6,000 pascals. This one has an actual brush and rubber brushes, and rubber brushes. However, the eufy has a single roller on their robot, single roller, and a double roller. They all have lidar, and you can usually tell by looking at the robot, and there's a little top thing, and when it turns on, there's a thing inside that spins around. Anytime a robot has a lidar sensor, it can scan the room very quickly, and generally the navigation is pretty good. It's not like the old robots where it just bumps into stuff and then just randomly goes everywhere. It'll map the room, vacuum a perimeter, and then kind of do line by line, left and right, throughout your whole room. The eufy has detangling for the rollers by reversing the direction, and somehow this little flap comes up and it brushes those bristles. However, on the Roborocks, it doesn't include this. The eufy has a dual spinning mop style, and ultrasonic mop style. I actually have to test this out to compare if it's better than actual physical spinning mops. The eufy will be able to mop edges simply just by wiggling around, although it does take a little bit more time to do this. You can enable or disable this in the app. In the Roborocks though, the Q Revo S only have the spinning mops, but then it can't reach the edges as well. The S8 Pro has a long style mop that drags the entire thing. It can reach the edge. However, when you look at the edge of the mop, there's not very much cloth there, so it's not dragging very much near the edges. Whenever you talk about mops, you have to worry about the mop dragging on your carpet if it switches from one to another, because the mops could be wet. The eufy does one of the highest at 12mm lift. Q Revo S does a 10mm lift, which is sufficient. The S8 Pro does a 5mm lift, which I feel like it's a little on the low side. When you're mopping, sometimes you need to really push in there to really scrub something off. So you also have to look at how much pressure it gives on the floor. The eufy does 9.8 newtons, or equivalent to about 1 kilogram. It's hard to find the data for Q Revo S. It's not specified anywhere, so I don't know. But for the S8 Pro, it says it's greater than 6 newtons, or about 2/3 of the amount in the eufy. They all do self-washing of the mop, but then they do it in different ways. When you have a wet mop, if it parks in there's not much airflow, so you're gonna end up needing a hot air dryer. They all contain this so that it can dry it out and it doesn't get all moldy and mildewy in there. They all have a clean water tank, a dirty water tank, and a dustbin, which uses a vacuum bag. First, we'll take a look at the eufy X10 Pro Omni. We have dual spinning mops. You have 2 wheels, a little spinning brush that's common in all of them. This sweeps the dirt that's on the edges towards the inside, towards these rollers. 6 edge detectors, and here's a roller. Let's open it up. The roller has these bristles and a rubber flap, and it's kind of wavy like this because as it spins, it's gonna try to concentrate all the dirt towards the center, and it gets sucked up through this vacuum here. The detangling part is in this bracket here. If you flip it over, typically it spins this way, but it can control it to go reverse, and it'll hit these little tabs here. It kind of pushes that little fork thing forward, and now they're brushing the brushes. So this helps to detangle any kind of hairs that gets locked in there. You also have your typical bumper. The front has a camera and even an LED flashlight for navigation in the dark. 2 contacts here, some guidance pin for it to lock itself in, a input nozzle for the water, and some kind of proximity sensor for it to guide itself into the dock. The mops spin from the motors in the robot. So when it docks over here, All it has to do is just kind of brush it against these nubs and it will wash itself. The Roborock Q Revo S also has spinning mops, which is a good thing. 2 wheels, a little brush that spins, 4 edge detectors. And if you look at the roller, this is a rubber flap only roller. So you don't have any of those brushes that would tend to get smaller particles vacuumed up. Older style robotic vacuum uses these rubber rollers. When you look at the frame, there's no detangling methods, which means that sometimes the hair would get tangled around the roller. And I have seen hair strangle these rollers and actually cut into the rubber. So it would be kind of permanent around there until you cut them off, of course. The front has a bumper, has a camera in the front. In the back, it has 2 charge contacts, a little input nozzle for water that goes to the mops, and some kind of proximity sensor for it to dock into the dock. These mops spin by themselves against these nubs to clean themselves off. So you're using the same motors as what's in the machine already. S8 Pro is still using this older style mop pad, although it's yet to be proven if the ultrasonic vibration is enough to clean the floor as well as rotating pads. This whole pad moves around just a little bit. You might have noticed in the other 2 robots that the mops are located over here closer to the base station. I just pulled it out and flipped it over. Because the pads are located on the outer side, if it's docked like this, it actually has to come out, turn around to push itself into this pad cleaner roller thing, which kind of does like a swipe. It kind of moves left and right to clean it and then pushes all the water somewhere. So you have this situation where it needs to come in, do its mop cleaning, and then it has to come out, turn around, redock because the charging ports are over here, and then dock itself back in. So it's kind of weird like that. 6 edge sensors, just like the Eufy one. It has a corner brush also, just like all the other ones. 2 independent wheels, just like the other ones. But this one has dual rollers. Let's open this up. There are no detangling methods here. We can pull these out. And other than that, it's very similar to the Q Revo S, except it just has 2 rollers. The camera sensing system, there's some kind of obstacle avoidance thing and the 2 contact pads to charge it. On the other side is a way to inject water into the mop and also a docking sensor. Now I'm gonna run each robot and have it mop up some stains on the floor. I have these fairly dried now. I can wipe them and they don't actually come off. The floor is indeed a little damp. It's missed a few spots very close to the base station, and it has a little bit harder time around the corners. The mops on the machine, it's not all the way to the edge. So when it tries to do the edges, it tilts a little bit this way to get the mops to the edge. But the effect that it's gonna be able to clean sort of kind of like in a ripple. So you can see it cleans about 98% of everything, and there are a little bit of blind spots near the edges. I have a new set of stain. Let's start a cleaning session. If you look at the footage, the Q Revo S actually moves a little bit faster. And although it doesn't have this swerving method to get at the edges, every time I start a new cleaning session, it seems to be a bit more randomized and it just happens to be able to clean some of the edges here and there. It's still missing this area right next to the base station. After 3 passes, which is the same number I did with the Eufy, I would consider this about 98% clean as well. I did notice that sometimes the robot got disoriented. It lifted the mops and it didn't know what it was doing. So it like did a 360 degrees and scanned the entire room again for some reason. But the end result, even though it took some time rescanning once in a while, it's roughly 98%. Let's try the S8 Pro now. I ran the S8 Pro a total of 3 times again. None of the robots can mop right next to the base station very well. If you look at all around the perimeter, it's still very dirty all the way around. I'd say this is probably 92% done. The most expensive and worst performing in terms of mopping the edge. Now we'll do a vacuum test with the Eufy X10 Pro Omni with these long hairs I've collected. They have been previously vacuumed, so I gotta tear them apart and put them back onto the carpet and sort of rub them in. Check out the rollers. A little bit of tangled right in the center, but I pulled that out pretty easily. A little bit on the sides. But let's compare this to what's in the dustbin. What's stuck on the roller, about a fourth of what's in the dustbin. We'll do the vacuuming again with the Roborock Q Revo S. Same hair that I pulled out of the vacuum cleaner. Not as many of the hairs got stuck on the rollers. More of it got stuck on the edges rather than right on the roller, but I still have to pull some out. Let's see what's in the container. It put this amount in the dustbin and about a third of it got caught in the rollers. Now we'll do the Roborock S8 Pro. Here we can really see the hair got tangled in the rollers really easily. Even with just that small amount, it got stuck. Over time, this would really build up and cause a problem. Let's check the vacuum container. This is the amount that's in here. This is the amount that's stuck in the rollers. Testing the eufy X10 Pro vacuuming on hard floors. No visible debris left on the floor. Every single thing's picked up. Let's try the Roborock Q Revo S with the same amount of debris on the floor. This might just be a fluke, but there's one tiny piece of debris right here left over, but very similar performance compared to with the eufy on hard floors. This is the Roborock S8 Pro, same amount of debris. Let's vacuum it up. The problem I see is that the mop is a little bit too low to the ground and sometimes it drags some of the debris around, and when it moves the debris, it might not go over it again. So there's a piece here, there's some that's pushed over onto the carpet, and there's two pieces over here. I call this about 5 pieces. Now we're gonna test the obstacle avoidance of typical things you would find on the floor, like these USB-C cables. I have a bundled up version, so it's a bit denser so you can see it easier. Put that over here, and a loose one like this, and just put it right here. If it runs over this, it would get caught in the roller much more easily. Let's start the vacuuming. When it was almost about to run into this one, it was like, wait a minute, it stopped. And then it tried to go around, look at it at a different angle, and it avoided it. So the object detection completely avoided these. If it was pet waste, it would be a big deal. We'll try again with the Roborock Q Revo S and see if it avoids these cables. It did not avoid the cables, it just happened to push them aside, but it ran right over them. So it's up to chance if it gets caught in the rollers or not. So no obstacle avoidance, especially for these cables. This is the Roborock S8 Pro. The cable is stuck on it. It pretty much failed. It ran through all the cables. Oh my gosh. Pause. What happened? That's really bad here. If it kept on spinning, it might burn these rubber flaps. Under the settings, eufy Lab, there's a smart track cleaning option, and if you enable it, you can push on the front bumper for 3 seconds. Start smart track cleaning. I'm backing up and it's following me wherever I'm going to go. And if I just kind of turn around, if you move too fast, it'll lose your tracking. Just kind of go, okay, vacuum over here. It also has this water detection mode built right into the base station. This is included in the eufy Lab, so it sounds a little bit more experimental. Just go in there, enable it, and then when you go to the main page of the robot, on the lower left, it'll show the water level, and this is calculated not from a sensor in the tank, but by how much the base station is emptying it. It assumes that whenever you take the tank out, you fill it up all the way to maximum, so that's a requirement in order for the water level to work. For the mop test, we got 98%, 98%, and then 92%. None of them cleans within 3 inches next to the base station. None of them does corner mopping. The eufy will intentionally tilt itself to the side to mop the edges. The Roborock Q Revo S doesn't really intentionally does anything, but based on randomness, it can still mop the edges. The Roborock S8 Pro has a really wide pad, but the ultrasonic doesn't work very well even on the edges. The hair vacuum test, the eufy was able to do just one single pass and all the hair is removed. For the Q Revo S, it was able to do one pass and only one piece was left over. It picked it up on the second pass. The S8 Pro did it with one pass. Tangled hair percentage is 25% on the eufy, 33% on the Q Revo S, 50% of tangled hair in the S8 Pro. So if you have long hair in the house or pet hair, that probably would influence your buying decision greatly. I also did a vacuum test on hard floor. Eufy left 0 pieces around. The Q Revo S left 1 single piece of paper on there, and the S8 Pro left about 5 pieces. Not a big deal. It can just kind of vacuum it again. Remember, these are robots after all. You can just tell it to do it again. They can take their time. Do it multiple times if you have to. Just wear themselves out. The Eufy was the only one that has object avoidance. It was able to avoid the USB cables, whether bundled or not bundled, just loosely placed on the floor. The Q Revo S and the S8 Pro just ran it over. Pretty big failure to me, which means that if you want to use those kind of robots, you have to clean up your floor first. Overall, the object avoidance is a big thing. The Eufy can mop the edges a bit better than those other 2 robots. My suspicion was correct in that rotating mops is better than ultrasonic mopping. The detangling in the Eufy does work better than the other 2 robots. However, there still remains a little bit of tangle, 25%. Overall, I think the Eufy X10 Pro, it beats those 2 other robots hands down. If you guys are interested in getting this robotic vacuum, check out my affiliate link down in the video description below. I'm gonna be releasing this video during Black Friday week, so they're gonna have a really good deal on this. Thanks for watching this video. Until next time.